So my name is Ray Cool. I'm president of PBSI. I want to welcome each of you who've joined for this presentation discussing IT security. Specifically, we want to focus on how to help staff learn to avoid issues with incoming email, links, malware, phishing attacks, and we'll talk about a couple of other important security topics as we go. So we're going to move quickly. We're going to briefly talk about the fundamentals behind security. We're going to get to employee education. We'll look at how do we know if our security is working. And then we'll cover some policies and procedures to recommend for inclusion in your internal policies and procedures. So again, my name is Ray Cool. Thanks for your attendance. So those of you who know PBSI, we have a long-term trust relationship with hundreds of clients. So many of you who don't know PBSI, we've been providing services for over 30 years for clients and have built a staff, including 27 of our number who've worked at PBSI for 10 years or more. So long standing history of really excellent employees in a continual learning environment. So serving clients is really important. We have a lot of people who are capable of doing that. So why do we need security? For most of us, this is really not a question we don't understand anymore. So we're obligated to protect privacy and security any place we store data, whether it's for patients, clients, employees, social security numbers, health information. We're obligated to protect that. So we know that the internet is a dangerous place, and we're going to talk about some external protections we can do, but our focus is going to be on the internal protections. So the list of who is threatening us has changed over time. It used to be more in the category of nuisance and sometimes focused on data theft. Now the idea of hackers and attacks specifically geared toward targeting organizations for capturing passwords and financial information increasing in both scope and size. So we're all obligated to act. We cannot ignore security, and you guys attending this webinar, you understand. That's why you're trying to do the best job possible, as we do every day, to learn and advance and protect. So what does good, complete security policy include? There are 5 fundamental ideas. We're not going to discuss each of these in much detail today. So we have exterior, interior, desktop, employee education, which will be our biggest focus today, and online monitoring. So what do we mean exterior? Our connection to the outside world. So in most organizations, that would be a firewall, or depending on how many locations, it would be multiple firewalls. So that is the exterior protection. And some key things we've learned to set up firewalls so that they are silent. They don't respond to the pings of potential attackers who really want to know. The more information that our system gives them, and if we don't have a firewall, then our system is really potentially a number of PCs or a server that are readily giving up information. A firewall is really important, and it's not expensive. It's not expensive to have set up correctly, but you need these set up by somebody who really understands security privileges and what's really intended behind security protocol. So a little bit of knowledge and an inexpensive device, you have exterior protection. So then on the interior, we include wireless, where most people today understand that you need a password, you need to ensure encryption, and there are some other issues. We'll talk in a little bit of detail about password sharing and so forth, where we need to make sure our internal wireless is secure, and that we have software running on our firewall that is intended to stop things before they come in. So a firewall is a piece of hardware. The software running on the firewall is a part of our interior defense, where we prevent a lot of things before they ever touch our network, and that's important. That is, some people think of as a duplication to desktop antivirus and intrusion detection. It is not. You don't want things reaching the desktop, putting folks at risk. So once something reaches the desktop, it's past our spam filters, it's past our exterior protection, and now at the endpoint where the rubber meets the road, the employee sits at their desk. What are the key things we need to do? One, we need to make sure that we have all of our protections up to date. So that certainly includes antivirus. So most people today understand this, but if you have antivirus and you don't know what it is, or you don't know when its renewal time is, chances are you need a heads up that you're at risk for possibly having some PCs where there isn't active current up-to-date antivirus. That's a big no-no. And then also the same is true of your Windows applications, Microsoft applications, Adobe, common vendors, where you want to make sure that your software from those vendors is up to date. So when you get a question, do you want to update to the latest rev? The answer is yes, always. If it's a question of do you want to install a new application, totally different question, but if it's a trusted application, Microsoft Office, whatever, yes. So the reason in brief is spammers and scammers understand the security game. We'll talk about that in a minute, where there's a race that starts when a security patch is released. You need to install the patch right now, or relatively right now, because an hour from now and 3 hours from now, and especially a day and 3 days from now, you're at risk for a solution which the spammers have now been made aware of a problem. You're not protected. Okay, so security issues frequently are related to unupdated software patches. Many people don't know that Edward Snowden, who's now a famous expat living in Russia, the way he got into NSA's security system is he was a contractor. One of his jobs was to update security patches on PCs. Well, he knew then and was in a position to get underneath the surface of an unupdated security patch and was able to steal untold information using this very issue. So don't let him in, and it's easy to prevent. This is a big part of it. So then employee education. One thing that many people know, many people don't, there is no antivirus on earth that can prevent a virus. So why do we need antivirus? Well, they do warn, they do a lot of things that really help us. They do prevent, and a lot of good things that happen. But once a virus is acquired with the wrong link clicked or the wrong attachment opened, then the antivirus will go to work and try and mitigate the issue, but many times that's really not possible. If you get a crypto locker or crypto wall or the many variations, as soon as you open that attachment or click on that link, your files are encrypted, and your hard drive is not only encrypted, but any network drive you're connected to has been encrypted, and it's a very, very dangerous thing, protected only by the knowledge of the employee who knows not to click. And so have a written policy, but we frequently say documents don't communicate. People communicate, people understand. So communication, generally human nature being what it is, we believe human nature needs to be in person or very specific, because you can't say, well, I emailed that to you, or we told you that. It's too late once the problem happens. So how can you communicate with staff in a way that they really understand? So one way to do that is to have them connect in a webinar environment where they're really getting live information and tend to grasp a little more completely. So people aren't dumb, they just need to know what's important to pay attention to. So the key main things here are no unapproved downloads and be really, really careful with links. So we'll dive into those in some detail. And then finally, the internet security. We have put our measures in place, our firewalls in place, our antivirus is in place. Now, how would we know if our security has been compromised? So an answer here is online monitoring. So this is a service PBSI provides at very, very low cost for organizations, where we are overseeing, and a dashboard alerts us immediately if either hardware problems or software problems or viruses occur, and we would know if there's been an intrusion attempt or if there's been a successful intrusion, and communicate with clients. So this is a component that you can do internally with your own IT staff if you have the right tools in place, but the question is there that kind of monitoring going on so that you would know? Okay, so those are our topics. I'm going to dive into employee education now in a little bit more depth. So this is our main topic. This is a summary of the attachment that each of you will be sent after this webinar. So the idea is on one page to try and communicate everything an employee needs to know. So the main topics are no downloads, no links, secure my workspace, make sure I understand and comply with policies, and that I have an understanding of what our policies are relative to external communication. So the most dangerous things, the most important to understand are the first two. No unapproved downloads. So no downloads of any kind. So does that mean screensavers? Yes, it does. Does that mean, and the answer is, stop me, yes, it does mean that. No unapproved downloads. You have some software installed on your work PC, if you have Microsoft Office, if you have your main application software, beyond that, you do not load anything without the approval of your manager. So many of you are managers and you're thinking, well, if somebody comes to me, how do I know if this is okay? And the answer is, it's not okay unless there's a specific business reason for it. And screensavers are among the worst. I'll show you just a short example, but if you were a malware provider, where would you hide your malware? And if you think beautiful Christian music on a website that is completely attractive, that's a great hiding place. And in fact, that's exactly what happens. So folks who are providing bad links in software really think hard, how do we hide them? Sometimes security emails are among the worst as well, because if you wanted to really be seen as a security helper, you're going to hide the fact that you're a security invader. So no downloads, that's really important. Then attachments, that's really important. This is on the same category of links and attachments. So if there's one key word that I would highlight here, it's the word unsolicited. You receive an unsolicited email from PBSI, who you trust. If it's unsolicited, think of it differently as where you requested a response. You send me an email, I reply. My reply to you is much less likely to be a problem. So unsolicited, that's different than trusted. You might receive an unsolicited email from a trusted partner. Think of it differently when it's unsolicited. Just have your ears open. And so we're going to talk about why, in what ways should our ears be open, should our eyes be open, what can we see that might indicate, okay, this one could be a problem, and what do I do if I suspect a problem? So attachments and links. Do not click on links or attachments in emails unless you know and trust the source and you evaluate some of the criteria that we'll talk about. So these are dangerous and you have to know when to avoid. So special caution, we've seen lots of examples, you probably have too, emails from known persons. They usually have the same kind of format. The idea is that they're very brief. Somebody's gotten a hold of the email address book of somebody you know well. I've gotten one of these from my daughter. I've gotten one of these from my daughter-in-law. I have clients at times where I'll get one of these, and the format is some kind of a very short email header that says, thought you'd be interested. Just something very generic. This employee might work for you. It's a resume that's attached. Quote, it's a resume. So the things that you can see, though, frequently, the person's name. So I get an email from my daughter, it's her name, but if I look at her email address, it's not her address. So simple, but it's frequently the case. And then just ask, why would this person be sending this email to me? Almost always these very brief emails to a handful of people. Stay away. Delete. And if you want to give advice, which we do, and when I get one from a client, I'll send an email and identify how they might go about changing their password, or this is a problem that's not going to go away for them until they fix it. So solicited versus unsolicited, we've talked about that. From a work PC, only work-related sites. So it's hard to establish a policy like this and make it work, but if it's really communicated really clearly, then people can understand this is a security issue. It's not just a productivity issue. So the importance here, we can't control, and when I say we, none of us, the most knowledgeable person goes to a website and it looks like it's Amazon, depending on how I got there, but it's somebody pretending to be Amazon. So we can evaluate that. And looking at email addresses compared to what we know to be actual email addresses is really important. Sometimes the letter A at the beginning or the .us at the end, just very slight variations. We want to make sure we visit only work-related sites, and then we avoid clicks. Obviously, you got to use the internet to do your job. It's not a problem. Just stay away from stuff that you don't need. Okay, so I'm passing on what I presume to be, you would listen to me and agree, yeah, that would be a good policy. But of course, we realize that these policies are yours to decide and implement. So we are attempting to identify what the issues are and the principles are, and then you make your own policies. So securing my workspace, this is more straightforward. More people understand this because it's been around for a long time. So I need to set my PC to auto-update antivirus in all Windows apps and browsers. And when we have a client where we're doing an installation, we'll do all that setup and do that so it's automated for them. If you're in IT, which several participants in today's webinar are IT staff within your organization, congratulations on your willingness to expand your knowledge. In some of your cases, you won't learn anything new or very little new today. That's great. You're continuing to expand, but you know that when possible, some of these issues you want to auto set up for employees so desktop users aren't left to make their own decision about, should I have my Microsoft Office auto update? So the issue, I described this briefly, but once security patches are released, so Microsoft Office issues a new patch, or Windows, or whatever application, at that time, they make the download available, and you can auto install the download usually with a matter of hours. At the same time, the security bad people all over the world are notified. I didn't know there was a problem. So Microsoft said they fixed this issue and it was related to this. I hadn't thought about that. So maybe if we tried, if we have this old version, we know how to take advantage of this. So the clock is ticking, and now they're releasing their hounds on the internet, looking for firewalls that won't be silent and looking for occasions that they can identify where anything prior to that patch release is installed, and all of a sudden now they've benefited and you've lost because you lost the time race. So automatic updates, really important. This is a security thing that has to do with desktop security. It's easy to set your screensaver to require a password when it comes back to you. It could be the letter A, it could be the number 1. You're not trying to make this a high secure password. You're just trying to avoid the janitor or a neighbor of yours from stumbling across the ability to use your PC in a way that you would not wish to be done. Okay. One other related thing here, if my PC is running slowly, don't just assume it's old. I've heard so many people, and done this myself, you have a PC, it's 7 years old, you think, well, this is just old, but it wasn't that old when you first got it, so why is it slower now? And the answer is almost always, there's some software running that was left over from previous installations or whatever that don't need to be running. So having a technician review what's going on can frequently allow you to, we can eliminate some unnecessary tasks and speed things up such that replacing hardware that doesn't need to be replaced isn't on anybody's high priority list. So, but another thing that's possible, if your PC is running slowly, there could be malware running, and that is worse than just slow. So if you have a staff person, their PC is running slowly, have them ask. If you have somebody where you're covered by PBSI, email our support and tell us which PC you want us to check out. We can generally always do this online, and we can identify and resolve pretty much anything that we could if we were sitting at your desk. So policies, never share my password. I hope this is common practice in every organization. If you're listening to my voice and it's not common practice in your organization, especially if you're a PBSI client, I'm going to hide my eyes and hide my ears, but I'm going to say contact PBSI today. Whatever you need to do, you must have unique passwords. And there are all kinds of reasons. I won't go into this, but particularly if you're a medical practice and you are sharing passwords, you have lost all ability to make a case for security of your information. So wireless passwords are in the same category. Today, we're recommending to a lot of folks that you change your wireless password. So, okay, what's the hassle of that? Well, you've given the password to all your employees who use it on their iPhones, but things have changed in the last 5 years. Your employees with iPhones no longer need your wireless. Now, everybody has a plan. Of course, I'm generalizing, but they can use cell coverage just fine. And this has another really frequent unintended benefit. We find a lot of networks run slowly because there are employees doing things that are innocuous, but bad. They're streaming music during the day, all day long. You have 3 people doing that. You've really made an impact on your bandwidth ability. So we not only solve some training, but we do it in a really easy way where we say to our staff, okay, we've changed our password, and instead of the way we used to do it now, only these select functions will use the new password, and nobody thinks a thing about it. It's not difficult, but if they're streaming something, they're now streaming it outside of the organization's wireless. Okay, so one other thing, very straightforward, but people violate it all the time. Look around your desk. If you've written a password someplace where you open a drawer or see it on the back of your monitor or whatever, you've violated this, and everybody understands the difficulty of password maintenance, but you just can't do this. Then you give the janitor access, and you don't want to do that. So finally, emails and attachments. So email is not a secure medium unless you've made a specific provision for securing, being able to encrypt your email, you may not email and you may not include attachments in email that have protected information, whether it's patient information or whether it's social security numbers. Encryption is very straightforward, and PBSI can recommend we can help with either software to allow you to do encryption with your emails, or very easily, no cost, learn how to encrypt any attachment with a PDF or a Microsoft document. So just it's important that employees know this, because emails sent out to the internet without encryption are open targets for, you've now put that stuff outside of your firewall, outside of all your protection, and it's free game, and there are software programs running out there that will attack and they will decipher. So web storage, another key area here. So there's increased use of Dropbox or Box or OneDrive or Google Drive, and we take advantage and make use of these things. In fact, we have a lot of clients where we're helping clients go to the cloud with a lot of their document storage. There are some benefits, but you should know that while encryption between you and the cloud is almost always encrypted with any of these major vendors, the transit of information is done with encrypted VPN connections, even if you don't have software. So transit's not the issue, but once it's there, stored on the internet, these vendors don't all encrypt documents at rest. So Microsoft's OneDrive, for example, unless you have OneDrive for Business, your documents are not encrypted. They're open to web search, Google or other vendors' web search tools. They go right to your documents with no encryption protection. So of course there are protections, but if the data is not encrypted, it's open to anyone who has access to get that data. And you really want to make sure that when you're storing things on the web that require encryption, not all your documents, but social security numbers, patient data, you must see that they're encrypted. It's easy, it's inexpensive. There are free encryption software that you can use with Dropbox or OneDrive or any of these. So it's just important to know it. So then finally, social media. It's common sense, but frequently violated. I can't display, send, I can't open a secure document on my iPhone if it's got patient information on it and so forth. So I just have to avoid the use of social media. No protected information can go on social media at all. And then there's protection about thumb drives. So this is just various ways where somebody could inadvertently take important protected information outside of our secured environment. So I want to say for employees, the big things are learning about downloads and web links. And we're going to go to some samples of email in here in just a minute. And by the way, we will be finished promptly at 1 o'clock. So this will be over on time, and some important things to come. So how do I know what's more information to help me avoid clicking on the wrong thing? So here are some examples. So some of these are old, some of these are new, but the idea is that people send emails, bad people, scammers, spammers, phishing attacks, and they are increasingly nefarious. They are trying as hard as they can to look real and to fool people into clicking. So brief email, please open this document. It was scanned and sent to you. So there's not enough information for me to be concerned here, but the fact is, where did this come from? This just, my ears should be open. So among the main issues I'm going to continually talk about is open your senses to, I need to be cautious if I'm not certain. And then what do I do if I am questioning who this source is? So I'm going to get to that in a moment. So here's another example on the right-hand side. Well, this is actually the unlucky person who clicked on the link over here, found themselves with a message that says your files have now been encrypted and you now can pay us now or pay us more later. And in the meantime, the hard drives of the network you're connected to are in the process of being encrypted. And so simple in view, but bad in ramification. Okay, here's one from quote FedEx. Of course, this is not from FedEx. Note, the email address is not from FedEx. So this is really easy to spot if you're accustomed to looking at this, but so many people don't look at the email address. And just little things like, who's this going to? There are ways that we're accustomed to seeing it's coming to me, but in this case, it's not coming to me. So what else is going on here? So the email itself looks really straightforward. One or more things have been shipped. Did my wife order that? So be cautious and look at the little things and basically stay away. If you have an account with FedEx, then go log in and see if this is legitimate. Another one from UPS, same thing. It's not really from UPS. They've just made it look that way. And now you have something new available, so forth. So PayPal, same thing. In this case, they're saying identity protection, click this. Well, here's a case where they're selling identity protection and actually accumulating your identity information. So now on the right-hand side of the screen, I'm going to talk about some things that can be done if I'm uncertain. So I mentioned this, but I also say use these with caution. With PBSI generally, we don't publish these test sites, and there are many good test sites where I can go and find out, is this a particularly bad link? If I have something in front of me, I don't know if I should click on it, how can I find out? So a couple good ones, Scan URL, and the second site, Virus Total, which accumulates information from multiple sites like Scan URL. So these are test sites. So the thing you do, so on the bottom of my screen, or here on the right side, I have a couple of known bad links. So these came in emails and we checked them out and they are known to be bad. So if I copy this email address and then I want to go to this other source to look at it, I'm now going to click on this link, because I know this is Scan URL. You'd go in your browser to Scan URL and you can either paste, and I don't know if I have, so paste this site and say check. Now it's going to go ahead and you'll see it'll take it a few moments to go through its paces and decide, is this okay or not? And you'll see it will return with information that will tell me, we're looking for anything red. So it's unsure about these things, but here you're seeing very poor, very poor. That's just immediate. You don't want to go there. So that's one example. So I'll show you another example, or I won't demonstrate this, but I'll mention it to you. The danger of using a site like this comes in what information you provide to it. So I'll give you an example at least. If I were to, I'm hovering over this link and it shows me screensavers.com. In this case, screensavers.com that is displayed when I hover is the same address as the link itself. So in this case, it didn't make a difference. There are cases where it says that this link is amex.com, but if I hover over it, it's actually something different. I'll give you an example in a second, but the way you deal with that is you right-click, and instead of saying copy, you copy the hyperlink. So you're actually copying, and then you paste that into Scan URL or Virus Total. So the difficulty is an employee could, and I actually did this the first time I tried this, you copy the text that says amex.com and you paste it in there and it comes back and says, yep, this is Amex, you're fine. But my bad, I didn't know that I was supposed to copy the hyperlink instead of the text. Okay, other examples, Citibank. So I'm going to give an example here of how to see the difference between good and bad. With most, I've seen variations in this, but I'm always skeptical when I see one. Variations being financial institutions in particular, they're well aware of the importance of security, and so they will not include a login link in their emails almost ever. So here's one from Citibank, quote, Citibank, and it's got an email address that looks like it's plausible. If I clicked on that, it would be bad. So this is a bad email. On the other hand, so here's one I actually received from our personal bank, and it says your statement's available, and to view your statement, go log into your account. So there's no link here. So now I'm much more trusting that this is a good message. They understand that if they gave me a link, they'd be putting me in a difficult position of deciding, is it okay? Here's one where email comes in and it's very brief, hard to know, what's this? I click on this because I'm curious or interested. There's not enough information to tell me it's a problem. Don't do that. This would give me CryptoLocker. And the dangerous email example was added by me. The email header was simply an order number or something. So, okay, one more example that I'll be very quick with. This is change the name, but this is an actual email that came to PBSI at the bottom of this screen. This email came this spring, and it said, dear customer, have a security concern. So this came to one of our employees who uses our corporate Amex card, and he forwarded it to me, and his email was, Ray, please click on the link below, answer the questions so that we can complete this purchase. So I received this email and I said, let me just go look more at this. And I saw this and I thought, I don't know about this. And I went and this American Express, I copied it and I pasted into scan URL, and it said, fine, that's American Express. Fortunately, I'll pat myself on the back. Now I'm actually pulling up that real email. And so when I hover over that, you can see that the actual link is Erquipoecta, and the word security is misspelled. I mean, so in this case, by right-clicking and saying copy hyperlink and pasting that to scan URL, then it came and told me it was a bad site. So it's just an example that if you're going to put the hands in an employee of enough information to do this work for themselves, make sure that they have enough information to use it well. All right, so that's all the discussion that we're going to have about online security. Now quickly, I'm going to look at a security monitoring example so you can see how would you know if the security practices you've put in place are working. So to summarize where we've been, we're going to give you the information that's contained in this webinar so that you can communicate with your staff and hopefully help everybody just have their ears attentive to avoiding problems. So now, security monitoring, this is something that if you're a PBSI client listening to me, you are covered by security monitoring. So the idea is you have BitLocker antivirus installed, and because you have that antivirus, we're able to see from remotely what's going on and identify some problems, and I'll show you how that works. So this is a PowerPoint slide, but I'm now going to go to an actual website and show you how this monitoring works. So this is a live website that is currently being monitored by technicians at PBSI, and so all the clients that are covered with any things going on and all the clients covered without things going on, I'm going to focus in right now on PBSI. So I'm just going to select one client, but the idea of the dashboard is that all servers and all PCs at all clients are reporting in every 15 minutes online automatically to this dashboard, and we are able to see what's been reported. So the idea, now we're just looking at servers at PBSI, and we see that this server has an X. So there's a check that's been made and something's been failed, and I can look down below and see what is it that's failed. So on the top I highlight, here's the problem. On the bottom I see, well, the problem in this case was the disk drive check where it has only 6 gigabytes free. Well, that's really okay, and I'm not too worried about that right now. But there are other columns where it says there is something that's active here. If there were a yellow or a red indicator here, we'd be paying attention to those things that would tell us that the antivirus isn't active or that there's an active virus going on a certain server. So we can identify at a high level if everything's okay. Then we can drill in and we can see things like security log events, what are the most frequent application log events. We can dig down and find out what's been going on. We can look at bandwidth. So if your internet is okay, in this case it shows in the green area for incoming and outgoing, and we have interior ports and exterior ports, and all of those are okay right now. But if your internet's running slowly, we'd actually be able to see that at PBSI and can frequently, we're notifying clients, are you having a speed issue? It seems like this is going on. And then we can also drill into how did that come about. So from a security point of view, security issues more frequently happen on workstations, for certainly viruses. So now at all PBSI PCs, the top item on this list says the check system is this one. It's a loaner. So here's one where this has been deactivated, and so we're paying attention to these things, and we can contact the individual PC user. So if I want to look at my own PC, just as an example, what will we see about my PC? We'll see that there are no bad checks going on, but I can see if there have been. So here are 4 vulnerabilities. This is important. So these are things right now on my PC where something hasn't auto-updated. Okay, so these aren't important, none of these are critical, but I can see what patches are missing, and I can see which ones are pending. So these are set to automatically install on a certain time and date. So these likely be installed tonight, but I can actually tell this to update right now. And I'm not doing this for myself. The idea is that the dashboard monitor at PBSI is doing this on my behalf. So same thing with antivirus, I can see, and we leave a couple of these here so you can see. So this was deleted. Okay, that's about to go off of my reporting site. This one was failed to quarantine, but nothing has been reported since October 2nd. So the idea is there's nothing really bad there, but we're aware of all of that, and then we're able to say, this combination looks like a problem. So finally, for your website, we would see web traffic issues and intrusion attempts. So I don't know that you need to see the detail of this, but if we see a server where it's doing some online activity, there's a failed login attempt. In this case, there were no failed logins. So when we see something where there's 6 or 10 or 15 failed logins, all of a sudden that comes higher on the list, and we see, this requires investigation. So monitoring is somebody on your behalf looking at the results of what's going on. And that's how you would know if your security practices that you've put in place aren't working completely. So end of that topic. Now I'm going to mention a couple of things real quickly here where we're going to talk about issues. Consider this a bonus possibly, but in your employee handbook, we talked about for employees, what do employees need to know, but in your handbook, do you have addressed, and many of you do, productivity issues like social media, instant messaging, Facebook. These are things where you can not only establish a policy, but you can set your software, your firewall software or your PC software, and we can do this on your behalf. You can do it yourself, where you can prevent certain things, and then you can monitor those things. So do you have a policy about internet usage? So no internet streaming is certainly a big one. Music, sports, whatever it is, you may not use organizational bandwidth, whether wireless or wired, for these kinds of things. So wireless, are you permitting employees to use wireless? If so, then set some guidelines, but it's also important to know when password sharing is okay. When somebody's spouse comes to the office, is it okay to give my spouse my password? Well, the answer should be no. And how far does that, we have a vendor who's going to demonstrate some software. Do we give them our password? The answer should be no, because then you really don't have any control. Unless you change your wireless passwords periodically, you've really lost control of the securing of your network, and now people can be connected. You don't even know they're sitting in the lobby of your building using your wireless with no control. So it's not a minor thing. Address it in your policies. Do we have a policy? Medical offices generally do now have a policy in this manner, but what's our policy for the destruction and retention of information? Today, copiers have hard drives. There's information stored on our copiers. We have no idea anything I've sent through the copier, social security numbers, anything at all, it's retained on that hard drive. What's our policy when we replace our copier or our printers? In a lot of cases have the same, or more routinely, we throw away a file. What's our policy about evaluating that file for what has to be shredded and so forth? So these are just ideas to include if you haven't already done so. Manage my physical desktop. So we've covered these issues, but do you have these documented? Remote access, this is a frequent failure. What kind of a pre-approval do we require? Is a doctor in our organization allowed to just connect his iPhone to the organization's Exchange just because he knows the password and has the ability to do it, or is there any approval process, and who's tracking who has remote access? So these are things that very much recommended. You have some controls established and communicate them to staff. Defining what is protected information and the principles of minimum necessary and need to know. So just because someone in our organization has a high level of authority, and surely they would have a right to know, to access anything they want to, if they don't have a need to know in this particular case, then they don't have the right to access that patient's medical record or whatever. These are principles that are easy to set out, and there are good templates. We can help you with templates if you don't have them. And then reporting of incidents. Again, if you're a medical office, you have a good understanding already, hopefully. If you don't, contact us. but what policy do you have when you realize that there's been a breach? And breach, that's a dangerous word I use for very minor incidents where somebody left a piece of paper laying on their desk and it could have been seen by others. That's an exposure incident. We could call it a breach, but that's minor. We report it, we set a procedure, we make sure that people are following this. And so these are things that should be done. And so hopefully this is just a helpful list to help you evaluate your policies and procedure document. So that really is all the content that we plan to go through, pardon me. And I want to say thank you for your attendance. This hopefully has been interesting information. You will all receive a handout that will come in an unsolicited email with an attachment. And you know that security is important, and we can help if you have the need or the interest in investigating further. So one of the things I'd indicate, online monitoring in particular, again, if you're a PBSI client, we already do this on your behalf if you use antivirus supplied through us. So we use Bitdefender. It's the most highly rated antivirus. For the same price you pay for Bitdefender anywhere, online monitoring comes included with it, that kind of thing. But in any other area where you have questions, you'd like free quotes, you'd like to discuss, feel free, contact us. Our goal today is not to sell any products, but simply to provide information. Hopefully we've done that. If you have questions, here's contact information in general. Most of you received an email from IT Services under Karen Reed's authorship, and here's my direct contact information. So you're welcome to call or email questions anytime. So we're finished with content.